Hello there and welcome to this short presentation on how to pass paper CIMA F1. F1 sits at the bottom of the financial pillar and you start off with F1, then you'll move on to F2 and then finally on to F3 as you draw near to the end of your studies. Now in terms of passing F1 you need to have good technical knowledge, good understanding, but it's also even more important that you have lots and lots of experience in terms of completing question practice so that you can test that understanding both in terms of understanding the requirement and also in terms of being able to do the calculations or provide the information that the question is asking. Now we've got some details about the F1 syllabus. You can see it's divided into 4 syllabus topics. Probably the sort of most important thing to draw to your attention at the moment is the fact that we do have quite a large syllabus. There is quite a lot of learning to do, but once you've obviously done some learning, question practice is very, very important. Now the first syllabus area that we have, 10% of our syllabus, is section A, which is about the regulatory environment and corporate governance. So in terms of what that includes regulation. So looking at how accounting standards are issued, who's responsible for issuing them, who's responsible for making sure that the profession acts in the best interests of the public. Also within that section we've got corporate governance, different codes, how they're based, what they're used for, what corporate governance is all about. The area of external audit also comes into that 10%, as does the area of ethics. Now what you might well find is a lot of the questions on that syllabus topic A can be quite knowledge based. So for example, what are the set procedures that are passed through in order to issue a new accounting standard. But some of them will also be practical in nature. So for example, in relation to external audit, what you might find is that they give you a scenario, tell you what the company has done in its financial statements, and then ask you to say, do you think that there needs to be any sort of modification to the auditor's report, and if so, what type? So using your application of knowledge to the scenario to find out what's gone wrong, what's happened, and what does that then mean for the external auditor's report. Syllabus topic area B, financial accounting and reporting, is our biggest topic area. You can see there that's at 45% of the entire syllabus, so that's a huge area. Now there's lots of different accounting standards that we're required to know for our exam, and some of those will be tested in the context of single company accounts. So you've got an individual company producing its accounts and you may well be asked to calculate certain figures that would go into its financial statements, or in a group context where you're preparing financial statements for a group, and again you're asked to calculate individual figures that would go into the financial statements. So in terms of what we're looking at in the financial accounting and reporting area of the syllabus, very much thinking about this is a company, these are the transactions that it's engaged in. So for example, it's got some property, plant and equipment at the beginning of the year, and then it's bought some more, it's maybe made some disposals, charged some depreciation, or perhaps done a revaluation during the year, and the question may well ask you to determine the carrying value, the value that's going to go into the financial statements at the end of the year. So it's important that you obviously know your accounting standards and that you're able to deal with certain adjustments and calculating individual figures. With our group questions, the parent will have a subsidiary. That subsidiary is unlikely to be wholly owned, so it's more likely to be, 70% owned or 80% owned. And then there'll also be an associate as well. We may have to deal with standard adjustments, things like intercompany trading or unrealized profit adjustments in relation to inventory or property, plant and equipment. So there is a big learning curve within that syllabus topic, but practice certainly makes perfect. The next syllabus topic is syllabus area C, and what you're looking at here is management of working capital, cash and sources of short-term finance. So very much looking at how businesses manage their working capital, how much cash they need, looking at how they make sure that they collect in their receivables on time, and how they prepare cash budgets and think about when they've got holes in their cash flow and how they could maybe plug those holes in terms of seeking additional finance, or maybe delaying payments, delaying purchases of assets and things like that. So it is important that you use that time to get a good understanding of how businesses work in terms of how they manage themselves on a short-term financing basis. So there'll be a few formulae that you need to learn in terms of calculating things like the economic order quantity for inventory, and again, lots of question practice there to get very competent at all the different techniques that you need to master. The last syllabus topic area that we've got is taxation, fundamentals of business taxation. And the key thing to tell you here is that CIMA have their own tax system. It's a fictitious system. It's not based particularly on any one country's tax system, although obviously it takes principles that you may be familiar with if you've done other taxation studies. But essentially, in that tax system, there will be tax rules. Those tax rules will be provided to you in the exam, and they will tell you things like the rate of corporate income tax. They will tell you which expenses are allowable, tax deductible from a tax point of view, and you need to get into practice of following those tax rules. So within that syllabus area, 25% for the fundamentals of business taxation is looking at some tax terminology and some tax admin in terms of record keeping and filing deadlines and things like that, but it also looks at direct taxes, indirect taxes, and also international tax. In terms of the exam is a 90-minute exam, so it's a 1.5 hour computer-based assessment. You need to get 70% to pass the exam, so that's obviously a reasonably high percentage, which is why it's important that you do lots of question practice before attempting your exam. There will be 60 questions within your exam, and in terms of how many questions are going to be on each particular topic, then what CIMA have told us is that they will very much stick to the syllabus area. So for example, the fundamentals of business taxation is 25% of our syllabus, so you should expect 25% of those 60 questions in terms of the mark allocation being on that particular syllabus area. Now, as you go through and do lots of question practice, you'll find that there are lots of different types of questions that they can ask in the computer-based exam. The most common of which, or probably the most familiar rather, is the multiple choice. So they might say, which of the following is an advantage of a principles-based corporate governance system, and then they give you 4 options and you choose item A, B, C or D, or option 1, 2, 3 or 4. You may find you get multiple response, so maybe you've got to say which 2 of the following would be examples of an impairment or something like that. Drag and drop, where you need to match things up by dragging things around the screen and dropping them into appropriate spaces. Gap fill, that could be for a word or for a number. And then hotspot and drop down lists, where you're looking at sort of calculating figures or choosing again from a list of drop down options. As we mentioned, the exam is on demand as a computer-based assessment, and the good thing is that the results will be notified to you immediately after the exam. So in terms of how is it that you're actually going to pass this exam, as I've mentioned, there will be need for learning, and there will also be need for lots and lots of question practice. Now, the way that your course is structured is you need to go through doing your learning and then working your way through the achievement ladder, making sure that you do your learning, you do your testing, and then where you've made mistakes or you've got uncertainties, that you seek help and guidance on those, and as you go through steadily, you will then build up your confidence and your experience and put yourself in the best possible way in order to pass the exam. So it's a good idea to keep revisiting things. Don't just sort of do something in the first stages of your learning and then forget about it until the very end. Keep going back over things through question practice practice. Try to see if any of this stuff relates to real life, particularly the section C of the syllabus, the management of working capital, cash management, short-term finance. You may find if you're in work, depending on the area that you actually work in, that there are different aspects of that you use in your day-to-day working life. Receivables management, for example, looking at the economic order quantity for inventory. If you're involved in the preparation of financial statements, again, you may find that you're doing adjustments for depreciation, you're writing down assets where there have been impairments. So make sure that you have a planned approach to study, and you have a study plan which will set out key dates for you, and you can then work out what needs to be done in terms of your study and in terms of your other life and your other responsibilities as well. And then you can put it all together as a key plan in order to work out your approach to guide yourself through the process in the most effective way possible.